Today we will have a topic of the fundamental simplicity in the now. And today we will also we will dive deeper into some readings of Zen, into some quotes and some stories. And we will get to know a bit more about the current, we may say, developments in this tradition, and coming to realize closer what the now is. So I would like to start today's meeting with a quote which follows as such: Zen practice can be of real benefit to the world such as ours. Perhaps it is not so irrelevant to the world in which harmony is scarcer than diamonds, and in which the realization of truth is widely regarded as an impossible dream. So yes, we live in the world where materialism is abundant and the truth is considered as impossibility, enlightenment, self-realization. For the vast majority, it is not even in their awareness. Now, I would also like to continue with the second story, which goes that during one of the first American Zen retreats held in Pennsylvania, a graduate student in philosophy from the Temple University left the retreat after the first day. And the note of explanation he had left on the seat was reading as such: if I were to stay for the full 5 days in this retreat, my philosophy would be crushed. So yes, there is a great investment in the mind. There is a great importance placed on beliefs and philosophies, one's understanding of what is the world, what one is, what is your name, what are your attributes and qualities, what is on television, what is on Facebook, what is on YouTube and social media. So much importance is placed on the mental concepts, understanding, rationalizing. So it's a beautiful note that this student has made, that if he stayed for the full 5 days retreat, his philosophy would be crushed. Because the truth is not about philosophy. Consciousness, self, now, Zen is not about philosophy. Explanations have come to be, but they were never meant to become a philosophy. Just like we can see nowadays in the non-duality movement, that as a mainstream, it's becoming philosophy. And there are many people who come to me and they say, I am very good at non-duality, and they say they have been studying it for the last couple of years, and they read many books about non-duality, and it sounds like another philosophy. And of course, the person is at a lower level of consciousness, at a lower realization, and they totally take it mentally, understanding the truth mentally. And that is what is philosophy in essence, trying to understand the truth using the mind. And that doesn't work, obviously. So non-duality, the real non-duality is experiential. And Zen itself is experiential. And the beauty of Zen is that it doesn't try to explain much. It doesn't even try to make a philosophy or derive complex explanations. It is all focused on the present moment, on the now, and cutting through the mind and using the most simple way. The most simple way. So, Dharma words from Suzuki Roshi, he's a very famous Zen master. Before you attain enlightenment, enlightenment is there. It is not because one attains enlightenment that enlightenment appears. Enlightenment is always there, and if you realize this, that is enlightenment. If you think, however, that enlightenment is some particular thing that you can reach, which you can attain sometime, you might be discouraged because you're seeking for it. But if you feel that it is not possible to attain enlightenment, you will also be discouraged. So whether or not you realize your true nature or attain enlightenment is a minor problem and not that big one. It is all the better if you do, but even if you don't, there is no need to seek for some other special teaching, because the teaching is always right here. So enlightenment is always right here. And it is about discarding the mind. It is about discarding philosophies and wrong assumptions about what is reality, what is the truth. So a very big process is deconditioning, cutting through the mind. So today's topic is the fundamental simplicity of now. And I invite you to take a few moments, not in meditation, just for a moment to pause whatever you're doing. And to see if you can notice the fundamental simplicity of the now. It is not a particular thing that we're looking for. It is not a particular high vibration that we're looking for. It is not a particular flow state that we're looking for. It is not about any other place or dimension. It is not about hearing the angels, seeing the visions. The fundamental simplicity of now is now. And then there is the continuation of the mind. Notice that too, that the fundamental simplicity is now. And then there is a continuation of the mind. So Zen or now is like a double-edged sword. And it brings you closer to the truth, and it dissolves the mind. You get closer to the truth and you lose the mind more. So as you will come to realize that we are not attaining something. We're not focusing on getting or possessing or keeping the truth. The truth is simple. It's right here. The now is here. All is here. Don't look for anything, but you will notice continuation of the mind. The continuity itself is time and space, and that's what makes every experience. The continuity of time and space is what makes every experience. And we know that time is very relative, because sometimes it goes fast, sometimes it goes slow. So is time real? Isn't the time just a continuity of the mind? Or simply a certain metric system which is used for convenience in society? But coming back to your own self, you will notice time as a certain continuity. And this continuity is happening in the now, in the present. So if continuity is happening in the present, isn't it that the present is more fundamental? Because when you are happy, you don't notice continuity. You just enjoy your time. You just enjoy yourself, the moment. When you are not happy, it takes forever. So in the present, you notice continuity. In the now, you witness the mind, the process of understanding, the process of trying, the process of seeking, the process of searching, And some of you may try to come to the stillness, but that stillness is just the opposite of movement. So those who focus on meditations to come into peace and stillness and just become frozen, we may say, that is the opposite of movement, of action. It is not the real present. The real present is also beyond stillness. It is beyond movement. It is home for both. So the fundamental simplicity is now. And in this simplicity, we notice movement. And most are very engaged with the movements, very heavily invested in the mental movements, heavily attached to emotional movements. Some of you are surfing some energy movements, trying to control energy movements. But all of that has certain duality in all of it. And fundamentally, it is the now which is here. Even those who have attained a certain realization, next day you feel like you lost it. One moment you have it, next day you don't. But what is constant, what is present always, what is stable? And that stability of now is unshakable. You cannot be not in the now. You cannot be not in Zen, not in enlightenment. It's impossible not to be in the now. It's unshakable, indestructible, beyond movement and stillness. All that happens, happens in the now. And consciousness is just another word for the now. Emptiness, as Buddha said, he chose that word because it was convenient for people at that time to lighten up their minds. And this real emptiness or the real now is, of course, inclusive of all that is here, inclusive even the space which is empty. So therefore, Buddha was speaking about the middle way. And for those who are new to Zen, the origins of Zen, of course, comes from Buddha and his teachings. And Zen was developed as a very simplified tradition, we may say. It's not really a religion. we may say a branch or tradition, to keep things very simple, direct, so that there are the least possible distractions from attaining this enlightenment realization. So speaking of the middle way, with one eye on the target, you are left with only one eye to find the way. So that implies with the focus. Once you're focused, you are blind with the other eye of the truth. Once you're focused on objects, on activity, and so on, you're one eye blind on the truth, on yourself. Sometimes we focus so hard on the goal that we become too rigid and lose our way. The middle path is a combination of determination and flexibility, taking nothing to an extreme. Sometimes in the world of overindulgence and excess, our string is too loose. So one way to being either too rigid and focused, too serious, is not good. And on the other part, being too loose, it's either no good. So middle way is the key. And there is another little story about what is serious. So when one Westerner went first to Japan to study Zen, he asked his teacher whether it was all right that he wrote poetry. And his teacher laughed and replied, "Of course it's all right, as long as it's truly coming out of your true self." But nevertheless, feeling that this Westerner needed to be completely serious in his practice of Zen, and he was uncertain whether poetry was serious enough, so he quit writing for almost a couple of years. And just before his Zen teacher in Japan died, he went to visit him in hospital. And he asked, still seeking clarification, if poetry is serious enough. And the teacher replied that poetry is serious and Zen is not serious. And that was a good lesson to the Westerner. That whether one thinks that what is more serious, Zen or poetry, it is neither nor. So if in your spiritual practice you say that it's only spirituality that is important, or it's only, on the other end, that work is important, or it's only this is important and only that is important, there is no such thing as only this or that. What we could say is that the now is important, and whatever is in the now is important, but it is not important to the extent of seriousness, and it is not important to the extent that you have to lose yourself in the importance itself. So life always happens in the now, and we meet many people who get absorbed, we may say, into particularly this, particularly that. And of course, we know that it is only about Christianity, it is only about Islam, it is only about this, it's only about that. So any particular philosophy, any particular religion, once it becomes too serious, it becomes too much. So the same way, if you know, this is called absorption or getting lost into something. And I invite everyone also to honestly review yourself if you are getting even too absorbed into my teachings, into what I say. Because my real message is not to put the words in stone and to treat them as religion. My invitation is to lose any mental rigidity. It is to lose anything you hold, anything that keeps you back from self-realization. So therefore, becoming a serious follower, it becomes a serious focus. And a serious focus also becomes a serious obstacle. So the middle way again comes back in, and the invitation for all of you is to relax a bit and to meet life freshly in the now. And of course, not to fall back into the looseness as well. Yes, I'm not giving any life lessons as such that now everybody relax, get loose, take it easy, go and celebrate, and forget about all your responsibilities. That's not the case. I'm saying don't take things too seriously and don't get too loose either. Just meet whatever is in the now to the best possible ability, capacity. At the same time, going deeper, and that would be as a practice, is to go back into the fundamental simplicity. And as a little side note, have any of you ever wondered why the Zen monasteries have such a beautiful gardens? They're very famous, these Zen gardens. So very interestingly, since Zen practice in a traditional sense, or in the old way, has been very rigid, the zazen, like sitting specifically cross-legged in a specific way, unmoving and having specific focus and doing nothing else. It's a very rigid practice, we may say. And what happens then when you come out of this practice of stripped down simplicity, which of course the mind doesn't like because it's so difficult. So as in the Zen hall, it's all about simplicity. There are the walls and the sitting cushions, and well, that's about it really. That is the meditation room. And what happened naturally, as life has a natural way, that once you come out of the Zen meditation hall, you come into a Zen garden, which is beautiful. And it's lush and to a very extreme perfection detail. So we can see that, the life has its own way. And even though in Zen tradition, we may say the tradition of simplicity, it was still balanced out with the Zen gardens, with the beauty and perfection. So this is how we may say the feminine balance found a way in the rigid side of Zen. This realization came to me today as I was remembering the Zen gardens that I visited in Japan and other places. I remember we went into like these very simple houses, Japanese style, and having the tea ceremony, and the interior is very simplistic. And then when you walk out, it's the ponds and the fishes and all kinds of trees and flowers, and it's a whole paradise garden, Zen garden. It's to such a detail and with so much thoughtfulness or so much attention to the detail that it really strikes the contrast. Really strikes when you see the both sides of it. Yeah, so life finds its way of balance. And therefore, Buddha always said it's about the middle way. So I invite you to contemplate on your own time about this middle way and about everything that you do in your life. Whatever you take very serious, whatever you take very carelessly, it's about balance. It's right in the middle. And where is the middle? Now. That is the simplicity. You can always get it back into the middle now. Yeah, you can always work on that in the now. So let's now have a practice together. And today's practice is fundamental simplicity. So I invite everyone to make yourself comfortable and at the same time to sit with your spine more straight, as in every meditation practice. Again, that's where comes that middle way. And when you're ready, you can either close your eyes or you can just keep them open a little bit, that nothing distracts you as such. And there are also meditations where you can keep your eyes half open, just simply gazing neutrally in front of you if there's nothing distracting you. So you can do as it's more convenient for you. What is not distracting. And if you want to close your eyes, that's also very good. And let's take a few moments to slow down. To slow down and to notice the simplicity of breath. If your mind is active, that's okay. It's also very simple in a sense that it's just the mind thinking. It's just the mind being active. There's nothing more to that. And if you can observe whatever is happening, you will come back to the simplicity. So you can observe what is happening, if there are any feelings, emotions, thoughts, or passing energies. The complication is if you touch them. If you touch your emotions, if you touch your thoughts, if you engage with them, that's where things get complicated. So try not to touch anything within you. Coming back to simplicity of breath. Coming back to simplicity of observation. You may get carried away, and that's fine. And try to slow down a bit more and come back to your center, which is your breath. And you can recognize that there is simply this. There is simply this. If you notice your mind being in continuity, that's what is. If you notice your mind not enjoying the simplicity, that's what is. If you notice your mind seeking for something else, that's what is. If you notice your mind needing something else, that's what is. If you notice achievement or failure, that's what is. The simplicity of what is. If you notice your mind wandering, that's what is. If you notice boredom, that's what is. Noticing what is. Everything is simple, really. Once you notice what is, and this continuity has a certain pull, the strength of pull. And that's what also is. You notice ease and relaxation. That's also what it is. So now is all. Now is all. What is? If you wander off, come back to your breath. Come back to the center. Notice what pulls you. Staying in simplicity. If anything gets complicated, come back to your breath. Your breath is the center, and things become simple again. In this practice, if you drift away, come back to the center. Staying in simplicity, simple breath, simply noticing what arises. Slowly, ready, and start back, giving a few moments to contemplate on or stay, to simply stay, to simply be. Fundamental simplicity, the isness of now. So looking for some particular experiences. These experiences will not last long. Looking for particular states will also not last long. What lasts is what stays. What lasts is what's fundamental. We may say the background of experience, the background of now. The background in which things happen. And what keeps one away from this simplicity? It is that which you hold. It is that which you deem to be of value or importance. So if you deem philosophy to be of importance, then you will invest your mind into it. If you deem any particular way of thinking, you will invest your mind into it. The only particular way of being is being. And if you consider enlightenment being particularly being like this or being like that, it is only subject to a particular person, a particular form. So if you deem enlightenment only the Buddha way, or only the Ramana way, or only the Jesus way, and so on, it was particular to these beings. And if you have done a big research about enlightenment, you will see that enlightenment is as different as there are many different people. So there is something inbuilt in the human psychology to look up and idealize a particular quality. However, quality is a quality. Behavior is a behavior. Action is action. So I invite everyone to see and reflect in the mirror of now. What is your investment into what? What is your ideal? What is your dream? What is your illusion? In terms of how it is supposed to be. How it is supposed to be. And the good question, how is now supposed to be? Isn't it supposed to be exactly like this? It already is. That's one. Number two is when you're daydreaming, that's also part of the now. Daydreaming. Number three is searching for something or for something else is also what is. And assuming that you know it, it's also what is. Assumption. So the now is as it is, and it never makes a mistake, it always is. And that is the sharpness of now Zen simplicity, the double-edged sword. So whichever way you look at things, you can observe yourself looking. And observing yourself looking is a lot deeper. And what is the ultimate depth? It's now. Simplicity. No depth. You can see as deep as 5 miles or 5 light years, and you will find awareness now still here. Now that is to those who are more advanced to contemplate on this. The depth and the now. No matter how high, how deep, how far, the now is here always. So cutting through those preconceptions, cutting through those assumptions, cutting through those idealizations, and cutting through the miseries, you arrive, as always, back here now. And it's simply noticing what arises, noticing what is here or within. The simplicity is always present. Complication is when you touch and when you engage, when you get lost into something. That's where complications are. So, as a last quote is as Alan's Watts, a famous Western writer and then Zen, he called himself entertainer. From the beginning, he says, I was never interested in being good at Zen, in a sense of mastering a traditional discipline. What I was after was not so much discipline as understanding. To sit hour after hour, day after day with aching legs, or to unravel the tricky system of dealing with koan was not what he needed to know. So Alan Watts was never traditional at Zen, and he didn't have any particular teacher, any particular way, and didn't follow any traditional way, we may say. And yet he was very, we may say, insightful and entertaining. That was his own view about himself, of spreading the message of Zen. So it is very open and it is unique to you. It is your now, your present now, and this depth of being in the now. How deeply or how closely you meet all that is, all that arises, all that passes away, and all that's in between. How deeply and closely you meet all that is. It is the, we may say, degree of abidance in the self, in the now, in consciousness. Just one more little story to share, which I always liked since many years ago. It's a very well-known Zen story called "The Woman by the River." So an elderly monk was leading a young monk on the way back to their monastery after a long walk to collect herbs. When they reached the river, they saw that the water has risen in the course of the day as the sun melted some more ice, more snow in the mountains. The river was now flowing strongly, and as the elderly monk searched for the best place to cross, they came upon a beautiful young woman. And the woman says, "Oh, dear gentleman, would you please carry me across the river? Because the current is too strong and I'm afraid I will be pulled away downstream." And without a hesitation, the elderly monk lifted the lovely woman onto his back, and the two monks crossed the stream, bringing her safely on the other side. And the woman says, "Thank you so much." And then she simply headed down the road. The two monks walked in the other direction, and almost after an hour passed away when they finally approached their monastery. And right before coming into the monastery, the younger monk says, "Wait," to his elder monk, and he says, "Excuse me for asking." The young monk says, "But I'm very puzzled by your actions, because it is forbidden for us as monks to touch women, and yet you carried that woman across the river." And the elderly monk gave the young man an astounded look and answered, "I left the woman back there next to the river, and you are still carrying her." So this story, I really love it, and it's been like a very traditional one, known for a long time, and this is the original story in the text, how it went. So essentially, the preconceptions and ideas, even being a monk, that you can't touch a woman and you can do this and can't do that, is not really about that. It is about the awakening of the truth, the awakening of the now. And if one is continuously puzzled by what happened in an instant, then this puzzle is in one's own mind. And one may form judgments and may form opinions and do whatever they want to do in their own mind. And therefore, this is a very beautiful example that help was needed, help was provided, but all these opinions and judgments of the younger monk are exactly what they are in his own mind. So therefore, in the now, again, the simplicity is as it always is, and one does what already does, and If you notice in this clear mirror of now, then you're growing. If you're entangled, too much engaged, too serious or too loose or lost in whatever you do, then of course you are, we may say, in the river of life. And that is not the awakened state.